Hi y'all, and welcome back to my channel. And today we're going to be all sorts of, I suppose, maybe a little bit sassy, but definitely very opinionated. And y'all are probably just thinking, when are you not? Point taken. I am very aware that I did not gain the following that I have because of my amazing eye skills. So much for my sassy rhetoric. And so today we're going to be talking about makeup that no one really cared about. If there's anything that I have learned on this channel that I've tried to pass on to all y'all, it is that if there is anything that makeup companies like to do, it is to release countless pointless products. They love releasing eyeshadow, 12,000 lipsticks. They love releasing huge old collections, little random products. They just love releasing as much as they can get away with in a calendar year. Whether it was warranted or needed or tasteful or any sort of actual necessary or brought anything new or constructive into the makeup universe. So as such, with that amount of excessive turnover, I feel like it's just sort of a given that there are going to be some products that just sort of piff off into the atmosphere. Obviously, this is a disgustingly opinionated video, and if I talk about something you love, that is your end-all, be-all, holy grail, your favorite makeup product ever. That is absolutely fantuckingfastic. You keep doing you, boo-boo, and I will keep doing me. And that today is talking about products that have been released that I believe, or I think I'm gonna talk about, were things that weren't necessarily met with like, yay, this is amazing, an excessive amount of open arms. Okay, like I said, obviously this is subjective. So if I mentioned something that y'all are like, wow, that was the bomb diggity shiznit. That is my bomb diggity shiznit. Like I say, that's fantuckingfastic. This is just me. This is based on my own personal observations, which obviously is limited. We're just here to talk and chill and maybe talk a little smack. The first item of which being the Pure Celebrate Your Selfie eyeshadow palette. Now, Pure is a company who has one of my end-all be-all favorite moisturizers. I absolutely love that shizz. My phone is sending me notifications and I'm getting all these stupid notifications from my OnlyFans Instagram that's like, thus and such wants to send you a message. And let me tell you, 99.9999999% of the time, that message is like, would you like a shout out on my 500 million follower platform? Or creepy guys who like to open up a conversation by saying,
hey sexy babe.
It's a fun world out there and I'm gonna be doing a video on it at some point. But I have never been one to think about Pure as a brand that has a remarkable eyeshadow formula. I feel like they bank a lot more on their complexion products, on their skincare. They've got some foundations, you know, they're known for that sort of thing. I don't see people breaking down the door to have their eyeshadows, either for their quality or their color stories. This palette was released, I received it through Octoly, which, no tea, no shade, I feel like some of the makeup on Octoly, there's a certain, Octoly is for influencers. It's where you go and beg companies for products and maybe they'll give them to you and then you have to talk about them. But I feel like to a certain degree with Octoly, sometimes that's where makeup products go to die. It isn't necessarily, oh wow, this bomb diggity shiznit amazing thing is now in Octoly. It's like, oh, that thing wasn't doing so good, and now we've banished it to Octoly for sad micro-influencers like myself to beg for. But this palette was one of those things. I got it. I tried it. It was okay. I don't remember anyone, maybe one. I don't like saying no one, because someone's going to be down in the comments, well, you don't know what you're talking about. It's the best palette that ever existed. You're stupid because you only use ColourPop. So So I feel like this was just sort of an eyeshadow palette that was just kind of a random what from a brand that kind of just right under the radar. I didn't see a lot of people in like declutters or collections. You know, when I don't see something in a lot of people's collections and I watch a lot of collection and declutter videos, that's kind of my gauge for whether I think it was a popular item. Maybe it's a broken gauge. I don't know. It's what I use. But you know, when you take into the fact that it's a company that eyeshadows aren't really its overall thing, and then the color story was like, honestly, what I would expect from Pure. Very simple, very basic. So this was just one of those things that sort of just happened. It wasn't a hallmark. It wasn't a moment. It was just a second in the fleeting months, years of the makeup turnover. This is going to be a little bit shady, and I'm sure some people, maybe I'll have someone down in the comments, I'll get a stan. I'm sure some people were all hyped and hot and bothered about this, but when Laura Lee decided to release her makeup line, I'm talking about the initial Laura Lee Los Angeles, not the nudie patootie whatever makeup sub-brand situation that is. And I feel like when it comes to a lot of beauty guru makeup brands, there's a certain amount of you know, after so many of them do it, it just sort of becomes a thing that's just like, all right, that's great. Another beauty guru, influencer, YouTuber with 50,000 million followers is coming out with their own makeup brand. That's something we haven't seen before. It sort of has a level of sameness to it, especially when you consider the fact that a lot of them kind of release the same sort of stuff, which is why I love Lunar Beauty so much, because Manny was like, you know what? I'ma be different. I'ma be aesthetic. I'ma have good products, great collections and all that jazz, and I'm not gonna be like every other beauty guru makeup brand. Plus, he has been unproblematic and been popping that shiz and doing those formulas like nobody's business. And then there was Laura Lee, who is not someone to be, I consider, amazing at makeup. Like, she's okay. She's got the basics, you know, she can do it. I would put someone like Butte Bean, Lacey from Spooky Lips and Fat Hips, and a myriad of other smaller content creators who are more talented. Emily Hanhan, Audra at Home, just so many of them who are much more well-developed and well-versed within the application of the pigments on the face. But hey, she got her following, so, you know, much respect. It ain't nothing to sneeze at. But she released this, like, cat's pajamas palette. It was the whole thing, and it was like, well, it's cat's pajamas, but then it's got, like, a floral inside and a glittery outside, and people are like, well, it's just her first release. Which that's true. When it comes to like new companies, they sometimes need to release a couple products to really find themselves. And so we're like, okay, all right. And then we did Nudie Patootie, which was like 12,000 shades of beige and taupe and ashy and washed outness. And then the real like kind of nail in no one caring anymore was when she had those little 6-pan eyeshadow palettes. You had one that was chill and one that was all kinds of crazy neon brights, which I do find a little bit funny because I don't think Laura Lee is a very bright, crazy eyeshadow person. And that shiz was sent out with BoxyCharm, and it was a dumpster fire. People, so many people who were well versed in color application were like, this shiz sucks. And so when it came to her company, it was just, it was once again this sort of same theme of being kind of a blip. Kind of just a moment in time rather than a century or a decade of influence. You know, people talk about Dominique Cosmetics. People talk about Lunar Beauty. You know, forgive my whatever. People talk about Jeffree Star Cosmetics. You know, people talk about the James Charles and Morphe. You know, there are so many other influencer makeup brands and influencer makeup products that are discussed still today, and I don't see a lot of people repping or talking about Laura Lee Los Angeles. Oh yeah, she also had that like Christmas collection, and a couple of y'all told me the highlighters in that was the bomb diggity shiznit. So I'm not saying the brand was a total wash. Obviously, there's always people who are gonna buy it. My opinions, my observations, my whatevers. But like, on a real note, this is just sort of a thing. I've had a couple of y'all be like, oh, wouldn't you like to have your own makeup line or your own whatever? And I'm like, I'll settle for a collaboration. I'm someone who plays with eyeshadow just because I do makeup. I don't feel like that constitutes me having the knowledge and the whatever of having my own makeup company. You know, it's like fancy rich people, famous people who make perfumes. You know, I understand it's just like they go in and they pick the sample smell that they like the best and they produce it with their name on it. That's kind of what I feel is a lot of these influencer famous people makeup brands, as they're just putting their name on it. I don't think they're involved, you know, in the formulation, in the whatever, in the whole absolute every single detail of the creative process. That is just my opinion, but it's just like, just because you're a famous person on YouTube that likes makeup, that uses makeup, that doesn't mean you are qualified to have your own makeup line. Okay, let's talk about a company that I used to, I still do. Y'all know that on my channel, the absolute passion I had for a lot of mainstream makeup companies has sort of just died down, fizzled out. And Lorac, the original Lorac Pro 1 and Lorac Pro 2 were one of my first two favorite high-end eyeshadow palettes. I did many a undead and vampire look with those palettes. They've been decluttered because they were old as sin. But Lorac is one of those companies that sort of suffers from, you know, they're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They're very happy with continuing to do the wheel. Wheel is something that has worked, and they're going to keep having it work. We ain't gonna try to change it. We ain't gonna try to fix it. We ain't gonna try to add anything on it. We're just gonna keep using it because it is safe and it is consistent, which to a certain degree is admirable, because a lot of these companies out here just be wilding, trying to do all kinds of what, and they're like, look, we've got a wheel with flamethrowers attached on it. Isn't that nifty? So I can give a certain amount of respect to a company that definitely tries to keep it chill. But in that can be said that certain products and certain releases that may have worked at one point are now sort of old, tired, and kind of not interesting anymore. And so, by the time the Lorac Pro 4 came out, I think a lot of people were sort of over it. We were kind of done. We were definitely done with the Lorac Mega Pros. There are almost only so many eyeshadows you can put in a palette and call it a Mega Pro. And while I remember being tempted by this one, it was like slightly mauve-y, a little bit maybe rosy, a hint of purple neutrality. Lorac has never been one to really push those boundaries of color theory, although they did do that one bright palette that I talked myself out of. But looking at this, and especially I bought the Lorac Pro 3, which was very soft and neutral and had a lot of ecru, eggshell, and taupe sort of situations. It wasn't exactly a palette that was gonna work for a large demographic of skin tones. And so when they released this more purpley one, you have sort of a bit of hope swelling within you. You're like, all right, they're gonna bring it back on track. We're gonna bring it back to basics, and we are gonna knock it out of the park. And this palette was kind of like the Lorac Pro 3 with a little bit of a mauve, rosy, cranberry twist, if I even dare call it that. It was just sort of more of the same. Lorac Pro palettes, I love how they're formulated. You got the row of mattes, you got the row of shimmers, but one thing that those palettes tend to do is that, you know, within the mattes and within the shimmers, those first 3 to 4 shades on top and bottom tend to look really freaking similar. There is not a large level of depth or gradation. It's sort of like pasty, mid, and one dark deepening tone. And so for the price point, the bang for your gradation buck isn't very high. I didn't purchase it because I believe I decluttered. You know, I'd kind of reached this point of like, I bought them, I don't use them because they don't have, for having as many shades as they do not have that level of depth and decadence and sort of being able to get a whole bunch of different kind of looks. You're kind of, no matter what shades you're using, coming up with the same thing. And for, like I said, having that many shades and paying that many dollars, I would like to get a little bit more. So I feel like the community was just kind of at a point of like, just shh. Trying to sort of impress upon Lorac that they should maybe let go of the Pro palettes or maybe take some time off, rethink it, but let them be aware that a lot of people were just sort of over that. I mean, y'all know I decluttered all of my Mega Pros, and that was like, I mean, I held on to those things being like, they're the most amazing things since sliced bread. They're limited edition and they're amazing, and you get 12,000 shadows. I mean, basically, they're a better formulated, larger Morphe palette, and y'all know how I feel about those laptop size things. In today's day and age, we do not need an eyeshadow palette with 35 shades. Cut some things out, condense it down, and give us something a little bit more inspired. Okay, this next one is we're talking about round 2 of a collaboration product. Becca, who is a company that has beautiful highlighters. One thing I like to say that is a realization I made, that I don't buy Becca face palettes anymore. Mostly because every face palette they release, whether it's a collaboration or a holiday or a spring, whatever, I mean, if you don't get it this year, they'll probably release something really similar next year. Or if you bought the one from the previous year, you don't need the one this year. They did their collaboration with Chrissy Teigen, not necessarily someone who I consider to be on the forefront of makeup consumerism. But hey, everybody gets their day, everybody gets their collaboration. And so the first collaboration, you know, that was like, okay, alright, whatever, I bought it, I did, I'm sorry. I believe I anti-hauled that shit and bought it anyway because I wanted to buy something. Basically the same thing as the Jaclyn Hill palette, basically the same thing as that other haul. They use the same blush over and over and over again. They just rename it something else. And it's a pretty blush, don't get me wrong, but at some point you think, maybe they'll formulate something different? So that collaboration sort of came and went. I remember them really pressing the limited editionness of this, and then it was like on and off sale, and then being touted for like, I want to say a year. Like, you could not turn your head without hearing about that palette, being like, this is the last chance to get it, please, we need to move these units. And it was around for a very long time. It was the gift that kept giving back. And then, since that went so well, clearly it was all sold out and raved about and everybody loved it. I speak in hyperbolic sarcasm, of course. They decided they were gonna do another Becca and Chrissy Teigen collaboration. What are we gonna get this time, boys and girls? Theys and thems? We're gonna get like either a lipstick or a lip gloss foursome little packet thing, value set. I believe there was a loose highlighter. Basically, it was just sort of a bunch of random shiz that Becca had lying around the facility. But they said, okay, Chrissy, pose for this picture. Look sweet, make it nice. We're gonna slap your name on this shiz or we're gonna sell it. And she signed her name on that shiz, took the check to the bank and ran with it. Not gonna lie, if Becca came to me and were like, hey, we're gonna put your name on this highlight and we're gonna write you a check, I'd be like, okay. And it was just, for as sort of uninspired and repetitive as the first collaboration was, this one was just even more. You know, you have that one famous meme picture of that guy that's just, Why? This was sort of the epitome of that just encompassed in a makeup collection. That wasn't even really a collection. It was just a few like hit randomized products that we put Chrissy Teigen on. You know, none of it really had anything to do with her. She does cooking, but everything was a baking theme, even though the first palette had nothing to do with baking. It was just a whole bunch of different choices that came together really poorly. Kind of create this random, strange Becca x Chrissy Teigen collab. I have seen absolutely every single item from these collections at Marshall's, which I don't think that is necessarily the nail in the coffin for the product. What Marshall's does is if they have companies that are liquidating or stores that are liquidating or places that just have an overstock of product, they purchase it at a discount and then they sell it at their store. So I don't see it being all like, oh, that thing's at Marshall's, it means nobody wants it. I mean, there was the Kevin Aquan Celestial Highlighting Powder at Marshall's and everybody wanted that shit. It's more a place where stuff that's like a lot of Kat Von D stuff was there after she reformulated, repackaging. But if there are things that don't necessarily sell the best, a lot of stock that didn't get what that was anticipated to be sold that didn't necessarily get taken off the shelves will typically end up at Marshall's. I know a couple of y'all have told me that a couple of those pieces in those collections are your absolute favorites. That's amazing. We addressed that in the beginning. But this was just kind of let's just take this celebrity and let's put their name on this makeup and sell it. I mean, I like the famous people I like. I mean, if they were to be all like, all right, we're going to take this lipstick and we're going to name it Tom freaking Hiddleston, I would buy 20 of them. So I don't like a pointless celebrity collaboration as well as the next one. But this one was just sort of just there. You know, they did it not once, but twice. And the second round was just more mind-boggling than the first because it didn't make nearly as much sense. It was literally just like packaging. Chrissy Teigen. Sometimes I wonder, I would love to have a conversation with a whole bunch of different brands, marketing teams, the people who are out there doing the research, taking the control groups, doing the polls, figuring out what the makeup consumers want. I would love to talk to them, be like, show me your research that decided that this was a good idea for your brand. I don't think they would be able to provide me with anything substantial. But like I said, that's just me talking here. That's all I've got for today. I could probably do this again. Y'all know that I tend to, when I find a kind of subject matter that I like talking about, I kind of milk it to death. If I enjoy something, I like to run with it. I would love to hear y'all's thoughts about these products down below. Let me know something that you think is a product that kind of just happened. Didn't really stay, didn't really hang around, didn't really leave an impact. But thank you guys so much for watching. I love you. And as always, keep it real. Mwah!